I am Tamara Delbridge. I am a professional makeup artist who has worked with many celebrities in many different mediums, from print to television to film to theater. And I'm here today to talk about my life and journey as a makeup artist. I've been a makeup artist for 20 years. And what happens to me in my Instagram is that in that DM, I'll get like a lot of young women, young artists, men, women, and they'll DM me and they'll ask me things like, how did you start? How did you stay successful? How did you keep a career going for so long? But the question of how I started is quite tricky because it's almost like I can't give that blueprint because the landscape has changed. The landscape meaning the things that happen to bring me to the point of success or just consistent work. When I started, we had to have a couple things. First, we had to have talent, which is, I think, in every career that's creative, you have to have talent. But not only did you have to have talent, you had to have fortitude. So if you didn't know photographers, you had to get to know photographers. And photographers in the late 90s and early 2000s were very important to makeup, being a professional makeup artist, because we needed the photographers to take pictures for us. Back then we called it testing. So we tested and we didn't get paid, but we got that picture. And the picture helped us create a portfolio. A lot of people now, they don't need a portfolio, but back then if you didn't have a portfolio, you weren't going to get work, and your portfolio had to be set up in a specific way so you can get a specific client. So it took a lot of time, sweat, blood, sweat, tears to just break in the industry. But once you get in the industry, then you have to stay there, and that is another tricky thing. So I'm going to take you back to the very beginning. I didn't even understand that makeup as a profession existed. When we were in school, and to no fault of their own, they just taught us three things. Be a doctor, which is great, be a lawyer, which is fantastic, or be a secretary. I know people who are secretaries to President Obama, so. But that being said, that doesn't give the creative spirit, the creative person, many options. So a lot of times you just end up working a job instead of living your dream. Fortunately for me, I had a few bumps in the road that pushed me to my dream. I used to love me some Kanye West. There's a part of me that still loves a part of Kanye West, and I kind of like akin my career to one of his first albums. I don't know if it was his first album. I think it was College Dropout. Maybe that wasn't the first album, but it was early Kanye. But I, Tamara Delbridge, am a college dropout. I'm laughing because no one would really be proud of that. And I'm not really proud of it, but I will say my foray in the university didn't go so well. I ended up leaving school early. So at St. Peter's College, this was, I think, maybe 1990. I'm aging myself, but it doesn't matter because I look good. I'm good. At least I think I look good. Anyway, so in about 1990, 91-ish, I was in college, and I ended up going to St. Peter's College because my parents didn't necessarily want me to leave the city of Jersey City where I lived. So they wanted me to kind of stay local. So because of that, I ended up going to St. Peter's College, and unfortunately, they did not have the major that I was interested in. I was interested in political science. They didn't have that. So then I thought, I like people. I want to save people. So I ended up taking psychology. Through that course, you have to take your prerequisites and the things that you need to get through the semester. I took a humanities class. So in that humanities class, the professor posed a question. And the question was something like, if you were living in the 1960s when the Vietnam War was, would you go to war or would you not, if you had a choice? So that was the question, and this was it was sociology. It was my sociology class. I wrote down my answer, and then the professor asked us to, share our answers. So most people said, yeah, of course I'd go to the Vietnam War. This is my duty as an American. And that's great and that's fine. And I understood that. As a matter of fact, my late grandfather, Warren Jefferson, is a veteran. He was a veteran of the Korean War. And so was my uncle, Sam Jefferson. He was also a veteran, and he was great. He ended up being director of police of Jersey City. So not that I'm against the war, not that I'm anti-American. But if you ask me this question, the way I answered it was, well, black people didn't have the same rights as white people did. So if I had a choice, I probably wouldn't fight for this country because we didn't have the same rights. And that was a problem. Everyone quickly turned around. It was almost like a movie, and started to berate me, and they told me I was anti-American, and I just was like, this is college, and I thought we were supposed to have opinions and be able to voice them and share differences in opinions. And maybe they didn't agree with me, but I was coming from my truth, and by doing that, I isolated myself. The one person who I thought was a person of color wasn't actually African American. So that person sided with the rest of the class, and no one wanted to sit with me. Every day I'd go to class, and it would be horrible. Like, I can't even imagine, you can't imagine what it is for a 17-year-old person to be in school and to be isolated in a huge classroom. So I ended up dropping that class, and that was the beginning of the end of my educational experience, my college education. I didn't find it interesting anymore, and I just felt like I don't want to do this. So am I proud of that? No. But it did lead me on this path. I ended up dropping out of school. My parents weren't happy. But when I was in school, I worked. So I was working in several malls, and I ended up being tired of the malls, and I was like, I'm just sick of this life in the mall, and I need something else. And I lived in Jersey City, which is very close to New York City, the best city in the world, if you ask me. And I ended up working in retail. So my years in retail were great. I met a lot of interesting people. I really realized that I was really a creative person. I was really into fashion, and even though it was a junior store, I really took pride in my work, and I constantly got promoted, and I just felt like it was great for me. Somehow I veered off of the fashion part, and I ended up at Bloomingdale's, and that's when I discovered makeup as a career. At first, when you think about makeup, you think of Avon, which is fine. Direct sales, this is like, we know what direct sales are. Somebody comes to your house, they show you makeup, you order it, fine. But I was not aware that there was a career where you could do makeup and get paid for it. I thought that, after I just haphazardly landed a job at the fashion fair counter, I just thought, oh, okay, maybe I can move up in the counter. So honestly, at that Bloomingdale's counter, that's when I discovered the art of makeup, and I watched all of these counter makeup artists do beautiful work, and it just opened up my world to an alternative career. Still didn't realize that you could do makeup in film, television, but I just knew that I had a love for it. The counter closed, fashion fair counter closed, so I ended up going back to retail, but I ended up working in the most poppin', best, most exciting area in New York City, in the Village. So back in the Village in New York City, in the early to mid 90s, when I tell you, it was like a girl who was born in the 70s, in the world when hip hop was birthed. It was like the best time. You would walk down the street, you'd see Biggie, you'd see Method Man, and they'd be walking down the street just like us. So, back in the back of my mind, I'm like, I did not graduate from college, and I didn't really have a real path. I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to find myself. But I would watch these guys, and I would watch these guys make something out of nothing. I would watch, somebody from the slums of Shaolin become global. Biggie, global. Jay-Z, global. Nas, global. And those men inspired me. They took their creativity to high plateaus, and I always remembered the makeup when I was working at that fashion fair counter in Bloomingdale's, and it made me rethink what I wanted to do with my life. What kind of career can I have? No, I don't have a college degree. I'm terrible at math, so me wanting to be a doctor, it wouldn't have worked. I would have been cutting people and all off. It would have been bad. But I knew that there was a creative spark in me, and I kind of went for it. So it wasn't necessarily makeup, though. I thought I would be a stylist. So a funny thing happened. A girl walked in the store I was working in, and she had a Half Plenty t-shirt on. I was kind of smart, so I knew Half Plenty was an independent film, and you really can't have that Half Plenty t-shirt on if you don't work in the industry or you know somebody. So I just kind of approached her in the store, and I was like, hi, I want to be a stylist. Do you work in the industry? If you do, can you help me? And she was like, yeah, if you give me that discount. So giving a discount was illegal in our store because that's kind of considered stealing. But I took a chance because I was like, if I don't take this chance, then I might not ever have the opportunity to live the way I want to live. So I did give her the discount. She did use that discount, and it was great. She ended up introducing me to the VP of, I believe it was V2 Records, or a very like an independent record label. And in that meeting, the man asked me, you know, am I interested in doing makeup? So I was like, huh. All this time because I worked so hard in fashion, and I was in the middle of Manhattan, and, June Ambrose was coming in with Missy and buying stuff from our store, and it was like a big, big thing. So I was really inspired by stylists. That's another thing that I didn't know exists. They don't teach you that when you're in schools outside of New York City, especially in the 80s and 90s. I didn't even understand, like, how do you become a stylist? Like, I didn't even get that. But whatever the case is, once he bought up makeup again, I remembered I have some experience at this counter. I should really look into it. And he's like, you can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money at being a makeup artist. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's when I decided to go to school and get a certificate. And that's really when it began. And I want to say that was 1997 is when I decided to make this transition. I went to school in 98, got my certificate, and that's when I officially, in my mind, became a makeup artist. Little did I know how hard it was going to be to break in, but I didn't put a time on how long it would take for me to become a professional makeup artist after I got that certification. I really didn't. I didn't think like that. I just said to myself, oh, okay, I can be on MTV. I can work for CBS. I can work for magazines. I'm going to do it all. So I clearly remember having this conversation with a manager that I worked with, and I was so excited and exuberant. And I don't know, just when you're young, that youth, you don't know what pitfalls lie ahead. You just know what the finish line is. I really encourage people to keep that part of themselves because, you don't put boundaries on yourself when you think like that. But other people do. And this is where discouragement comes in. Sometimes people will discourage you when they think they're helping you. And I just think that's them into putting their fears on you. I forgot there's a term for that, but you guys know what it is. Hit me in my comments and let me know what that term is. But anyway, but getting back to the story, there were people who discouraged me or tried to out of love. And that almost propelled me to prove to them that I could do it as fast as I want to, as quick as I want to, and nobody's going to tell me when or where I'm going to be working for these major TV stations or labels. I didn't see that. I didn't see what they saw. I remember getting back to my manager, sweet girl, I love her to death, but I was having this conversation, and she was like, what are you going to do with this makeup career? And I was like, oh, I'm going to work at MTV. And oh my God, I was so cute. I was like a size 0. I don't know, wearing little clothes that little people wear. But I was just like so full of energy, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to work at MTV and BT and CBS, and I'm going to work in magazines, and I'm going to do this and that. And she's like, Tamara, you know that's not going to happen overnight, right? And I was like, so? I don't care. But in the back of my mind, I just kept saying to myself, why did she say that? Why did she tell me that? She trying to warn me? Like, how would you know? You didn't try to be a makeup artist. So it kind of like angered me, and it pushed me, and it propelled me. So shortly after that conversation, I ended up leaving that job and finding my way into retail stores like Sephora. I kind of worked Sephora for 1 week, and I decided this ain't it for me. It wasn't it for me at the time because I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work on MTV and CBS, and I wanted to do all this TV makeup, and that's what I knew I wanted to do. So I knew that me working at that retail store wasn't going to work for me. So after working at Sephora, I ended up working at Clinique counter. It just didn't work for me, and I decided I have to leave this. I can't be selling makeup. I didn't even feel like my hand was strong enough to do makeup. I didn't even want to do that to the customers. I know I took my class at LIBS. It's now called Empire, but back then it was called LIBS, the Learning Institute of Beauty Sciences. Yes, and I took those classes, but I felt like I needed to work, and I wasn't working at Sephora. I was selling, and I didn't want to sell. I wanted to work. So I ended up, quitting that job and moving towards the salon world because I felt like I would get it would be like boot camp, and it was. So I ended up working at David Sean. David Sean is a high-end salon in Manhattan. The location was in Soho. Worked there for a little while, and when you're young, you just don't take much. So I didn't like the way one of the owners treated me. And I just decided at lunch, I'm not going back. I'm going to find someplace else. And I ended up at Turning Heads Beauty Salon. Turning Heads Beauty Salon was run by this beautiful soul, Shannon Ayers. And she instantly took to me. People in the salon didn't even wear makeup. They were natural girls at the time. It wasn't this day of natural girls when they are beat to the god, looking gorgeous. And if you don't wear makeup, you're gorgeous anyway, but it just wasn't it. Like if you were wearing locks, you weren't wearing makeup. If anything, you might have put on some lip gloss, some lip balm, maybe some mascara at the most. But me being in that salon helped me. I learned how to gain trust from clients, because she had clients that came in and I was there. I was very excited. I had my long weave down to my back. Mind you, these girls had their locks and they were beautiful, but I was total opposite of who they were. But I was so excited about the work, and I think after a while, my excitement and my happiness broke them down, and they allowed me to do makeup on them. So I eventually went from only tweezing their eyebrows, because that's about all they wanted, and then they eventually said, well, let me just try this and let me try that. So that really helped me learn how to gain trust from clients, where I wasn't pushy. I never pushed. It was just my excitement for this thing that I was doing, and I just drew them in naturally. Why I call Shannon Ayers a beautiful soul is because she loved me. I know she did. She gave me so much opportunity. I can't even thank this woman enough. But she also knew that I had to go. So she did some research of her own, and I don't know if it was research for me, but I think she put her thinking cap on and she found a person who she thought I would be better suited to work for. And this was a makeup artist. His name is Daniel Green. Daniel Green is still a phenomenal makeup artist. He's working to this day. His department had in a lot of shows. Just a little background on him, and I know he worked on Power. Power is about to be over now, but he worked on a lot of film. He worked news. Like, I really learned a lot about him. But back in the 90s, before all of that, before he found his way into TV, he was doing a lot of print, and he was also a photographer. So, she's like, Tamara, why don't you go to work with Daniel? I think it'll be better for you. There's nothing I can do for you here. And I cried. I was like, no, I don't want to leave. It was in the heart of Harlem. I just felt so comfortable there. I felt at home. These people finally started liking me and trusting me, but she knew that I would not be able to move forward if I stayed there. So I ended up leaving her and working for Daniel. And through Daniel, I gained a lot of experience. I started washing his brushes. That's the only thing he had allowed me to do. But I needed to learn to wash brushes. I had to understand what cross-contamination was. And, he paid me $200 a week. It was the best $200 a week I could have ever made. It was a blessing to me to earn that money the way I did. And finally, he ended up allowing me to shadow him. And he did things step by step, little by little. And I really think it's important for people to take the steps, because this makes you an expert. You can't be an expert just by wanting to do something. You have to practice. And those things that I learned from Daniel gave me the practice that I needed. And slowly but surely, he allowed me to do makeup. And then he kicked me out of the nest too. Everybody's kicking me out of the nest. They were like, "You're getting too comfortable. I can't have you here anymore. You need to go and work." And I was like, "No, not again, not again." But I definitely needed that kick in the butt. Honestly, this is 2 years after I got my certificate, so everything was moving fast for me. I ended up through him working for Luster and doing a photo shoot, and then I literally, from that point on, I started working on my own. And 20 years later, here I am.